Hey, Reinvention Rebels. Can you believe we are 100 episodes strong? 100 episodes of amazing midlife and older women who are crushing ageist stereotypes and stepping into the light to reinvent themselves in inspiring, bold, and unapologetic ways. And I am so appreciative of you being here for the ride. And I want to thank you with my free gift, 100 Ways to Reinvent Yourself in Midlife. I've got ideas and inspiration to get you started on your own reinvention journey. Just click the link in the show notes and download it in an instant. Let's get started and let's reinvent and get inspired together.
You know, I think a lot of it comes down to, once again, how we speak about ourselves and our belief systems about ourselves. And this is something that we can continuously reinvent and we can continuously curate and step into, because so often we have been living lies that we're not enough, we're not good enough, we're not strong enough, we're not confident enough. We're not enough is such a pervasive story. And yet we've never defined what enough is. We just keep telling ourselves that we're not enough. But that's a choice. Says who?
Welcome to Reinvention Rebels, stories of brave and unapologetic women 50 to 90 years young who have boldly reinvented life on their own terms to find new purpose and possibilities. I'm your host, Wendy Battles. I need to kick your fears to the curb, do it scared, and step into who you are meant to be in midlife and beyond. These amazing women, these Reinvention Rebels, can help light your reinvention path. Come join us and let's get inspired together. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Reinvention Rebels podcast. I'm your host, Wendy. I'm so happy you are here. Reinvention Rebels is a top 2% globally rated podcast. We get all into shining a light on the amazingness of midlife women. We celebrate, we elevate, we illuminate the stories of women that are doing the coolest things as they reinvent, who are 50 and above. Ooh, I love it so much. And you know what else? Today isn't just any episode. Today is the 100th episode of the Reinvention Rebels podcast. And for me, that is a time to celebrating that we have been showering ourselves, shining a light on ourselves and the amazing things we're doing 100 episodes in. I actually never really thought about the trajectory of the podcast, what that might look like, but I'm really happy that you're here for the ride. And we're going to be celebrating this month in May. We're going to celebrate 100 episodes. So you can stay tuned that even in our next episode, I'm going to do a little look back at what's happened over the course of 100 episodes. So you are going to be in for a treat. I do want to mention before we get into my guest today, who is amazing, of course, because they all are, but I do want to take a moment and ask you if you had a chance to listen to the extraordinary Regina Young. She joined me in the guest chair for the last episode, and she is so amazing. Her story is so powerful, how she is owning her awesome. If you need a dose of encouragement, empowerment, you need a reminder of how amazing you are, you gotta listen to this episode that we did. It was juicy and full of inspiration. And of course, I am linking to it in the show notes for easy access. I highly recommend you give it a listen. And now let me tell you about my guest today, Tanja Shaw. Tanja Shaw is a functional health coach, kinesiologist, and weight loss coach for women who want to end the struggle with food, so that they can get to their happy, healthy weight without the obsession and feel free in their body and life. Through functional lab testing, personalized wellness protocols, and mindset coaching, Tanja helps her clients live fitter, healthier, and more vibrant lives in midlife and beyond. She's also the owner of Ascend Fitness and Lifestyle, a holistic health coaching studio in Chilliwack, British Columbia, since 2007, and host of the Fit and Vibrant You podcast since 2015, which I have had the pleasure of being a guest on. I'm really excited for our conversation today. You're going to love Tanja. She's got so many amazing insight. Tanja Shaw, welcome to the Reinvention Rebels guest chair.
Thank you so much for having me.
We are going to have a great conversation because we have a lot of stuff to talk about when it comes to midlife women, our changing bodies, what we're putting into them, and how we can navigate those changes with more, dare I say, joy and ease. And I know you'll have a lot to say about that. I want to start by asking you a little bit about something we chatted about in our pre-interview talk. And you mentioned that part of your reinvention story centers on having breast explant, having implants removed in midlife. I'd love for you to tell us about that experience and how that's figured into your reinvention journey.
Yeah, so let's dive right in. I only started talking about it probably last fall. I had planned for a while to have the surgery, and I was nervous to share because most people didn't even know I had breast implants in the first place. And I'm also someone who really promotes body positivity and self-love. And so part of me thought, like, is that sort of, does that go, in the same kind of vein as that, or is it completely against it? And it was back in 2011, Wendy, that I decided to get breast implants. Not that I didn't love my body or anything like that. I am like just ultra flat. And I always wanted to have some breasts. I'm like, it'd be kind of fun. And so I had my son. We were just having one child. We did IVF a couple times. So eventually we decided to stop, and like, now's the time. So I got breast implants, and, I enjoyed it. Like, I'm not going to lie. It was nice to have boobs and the way clothes fit and everything. It just was it was nice. And I felt more feminine. I would say probably I felt more confident when I got them in as well, because, it's just, I guess you just act as if, and it felt great. But then over the time, you're told that breast implants are going to last about, a decade or so, maybe a little bit longer. And as that time came and went, and I was now like 11, 12 years post implant, I was starting to think, like, what's next? So at some point, I either have to get them out, or I need to get them replaced, or something's going to happen. And at the same time, in my health journey, I really have evolved a lot since that time, coming from a place of more, I'd say, even more body appreciation, more of a holistic way of looking at health. And I started doing a lot more of the functional health training as well, and realizing that there's not necessarily a great thing to have bags of silicone in your body all the time. And there could be some negative repercussions of that. I don't think I ever had breast implant illness. A lot of women do. A lot of women have lots of pretty significant, side effects of having breast implants. I don't think I did, but I wanted to get them done because I wanted to be in charge. I wanted to be in control of when I got them out. And I never want there to be a lingering question of, like, what if they were causing something that I didn't know. And regardless, I still don't think that having bags of silicone in your body is necessarily going to be health promoting. And so I decided, it was about a year ago, actually, last in 2023, to get them out. And because it took quite a while to get the surgery date and everything, like, when I decided, I wanted them out then, like, I wanted them out yesterday, but I had to wait. And then coming up to the surgery, I was quite nervous. Part of my thoughts process, and I know this is not true, but the brain sometimes tells you things that aren't true. I was starting to question, like, would I still feel feminine? Would I still feel as confident? Would I still feel as sexy? Would I still be as sexy without having breasts? And then I think about, I know as I'm saying this, I know those thoughts are not true, because there are women who have full mastectomies and are feminine and beautiful and sexy and confident. There are women with huge breasts who wish they had smaller breasts. And there's women with like pointy nipples who wish they had flatter nipples. And there are women with like, so there's no perfect breasts, really. There's no perfect anything. And I was kind of nervous at how I would feel, how obviously, because there was so many unknowns. But I'll tell you, Wendy, I went through the surgery and immediately I felt so good. I felt like I came home to my body. And I'm so glad I went through the whole process. I think I have an appreciation for having my super flat chest, even more than I did before, because it's me and it's who I am. And while I might not look like, the model on TV or anything like that, or in a magazine, it's who I am. And I feel really at peace and at home in my body now. And I feel really good about that decision. And now, I mean, honestly, don't think about it too much anymore. I'm back to wearing bras with a little bit of padding in them and, a little bit of, but that's just, it's who I am. So it feels really good. And I think as we go through this journey called life, we make lots of decisions. And sometimes we talked about when you were on my podcast too, sometimes you make the right decisions. Sometimes you make decisions that if you had a do-over, you'd choose something differently. And perhaps if I did go back, I might have not have gotten the breast implants, knowing what I know now, but you didn't know that. And I learned so much along the way. And every decision gets you to where you are now. And you always learn, you always grow from everything that you make. So for me, it was the right choice. I'm not saying that every woman needs to go get breast explants, but it is a good question to ask, because I know lots of women do have breast implants, and it's becoming more and more common to also get the explant surgery, because a lot of people do have negative symptoms because of breast implants as well. And it's just, it's just nice not to have them in your body.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really interesting, some of the insights you had about your body. And I think, we're in this midlife stage. Our bodies are changing anyway. And we often are having thoughts about them, whatever they might be. Mm-hmm. But what I really appreciate about what you said is that you came to appreciate your body in new ways. And it sounds like also to be less judgmental about your body, where before it's like, well, I want this and I'm going to create this. But then you realize, well, my body is just perfect the way it is.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's perfectly imperfect or perfectly the way it's supposed to be. And
yeah.
I just think it's like this the way I was created to be. There's no challenge in loving your body when you have made it exactly as you want it to be. And we do that so often. We think that weight loss, like I'm a weight loss coach, and I promote, body acceptance, body appreciation, body love. And a lot of my clients want to lose weight, and that's totally fine. But if we only love and appreciate ourselves when we've hit this perfect weight, or we have the perfect breasts or the perfect butt or the perfect cheeks or the skin or the hair or whatever, it becomes conditional love.
Yeah.
And then we get to this place, and instead of we think that, oh, I'll love my body and I'll be free, I'll be at peace, I'll be all that kind of stuff. We just end up being in fear of losing that. And it becomes a condition that I only love myself when I'm a certain size, when I'm whatever. Like most people, have a bit of a fluctuation with my weight. And whenever I'm at my heaviest weight or my heavier side of my weight, I always think of it as such a great opportunity to practice this full appreciation and love for myself no matter what. Because my body is not working against, I was not trying to lose or to gain weight so that I to punish myself or anything like that. My body's there to help me survive, help you survive. And so it's really quite interesting. And then the other thing sometimes is I have this thought, for example, the size of my breasts, we sort of equate having a full bust line with being more sexy, being more feminine, whatever, because that's what we see. But what if we saw something different? What if everyone that we saw who was sexy, who was beautiful, who was like the models, were super flat or super big or whatever? It was just different. Then would that change how we thought about ourselves? So it's just kind of curious, because so often we are so influenced by, and we know this, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but we're so influenced by what we see on social media or what we see on, in the magazines, or what we're told we're supposed to look like. And whether it's the size of your body or the size of your breasts or the size of your feet or your nose or whatever,
yeah,
it all comes down to the only reason that we are unhappy with what we have is because we think it should be different. And I'm not saying that you should just be complacent. I mean, I actually do believe that a lot of women who want to lose weight could lose weight, and they might be happier losing weight because they'll be taking care of their body, which is possible. It's not always the only case. But sometimes we just come at it from this place of, like, again, I'll be happy when, that's just a lie that we keep telling ourselves.
Yeah, it's really true. And I know that the influence of the media, especially now with social media, I mean, before it was bad enough with just mainstream media and magazines and TV, but now because we are on social media so much, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or whatever our medium of choice is, it's hard not to be impacted by that. And I think, right, like we have to, and especially at this age where I feel like when you're in midlife and things are changing, we sometimes become less confident about our body. And I certainly know you talked about how sometimes you gain weight, and certainly I've noticed that, my metabolism is slowing down a bit. And they talk about how things start to shift, how like, all of a sudden I got this back fat that I didn't have before. And, you kind of obviously get thicker in the middle. And trying to practice this idea that you talk about of body acceptance, to really appreciate what we have, as opposed to disparaging ourselves or constantly comparing ourselves. Or even, you look at celebrities who are rich and famous. Well, they could be our age, but of course they have a whole team of people that can make them look amazing. And, and sometimes it's smoke and mirrors anyway, but also they can pay for the trainers and all those people that the average person isn't going to be able to do to the same degree. Are you thinking, I'll have some of what she's having? Reinvention Rebels are amazing, as you can hear from our discussion. They've put themselves first, decided their dreams matter, and are taking action. They have unleashed their inner rebel and are living on purpose in midlife. Are you ready to start putting yourself first and embark on your midlife dreams, focused on what you want, not others' ideas of what you should do? Come check out my new audio course, Midlife Reinvention from the Inside Out. 8 Essentials to Greenlight Your Life. I share my roadmap to get you started on your reinvention journey with the key components you need to navigate detours and get on the road to smooth reinvention sailing. Sis, it is time to give yourself the green light to shine in midlife and crush those dreams of yours with joy and purpose. Join today and let's reinvent and get inspired together. Details are in the show notes.
For sure. And even if it is seriously like that, they still might not be happy, because happiness is an inside job.
It is.
It's not, I mean, it's like 10% of what our external circumstances are, because that does matter. And it's 90% of our perspective and what we focus on. A little while ago, I was like, I'm quite happy with my body right now. But then I was watching a movie. I can't remember some movie. There was a woman who had her shirt off in the movie and had these probably like a full C perky breast. And I did have that thought right away, like, I don't look like that. And as soon as you had that comparison, I felt less than. And so it takes a really concerted effort for us to continuously practice that new story. And talking about social media, I mean, the great thing, there are also amazing social media accounts that are more body positive or more that preach the message or that share the message of body acceptance, body love, no matter what. And once again, I want to reiterate that when I say body acceptance, body love, body appreciation, it does not mean that you have to also settle from where you're at. Like, you can have, maybe you've gained 15 pounds, and it doesn't mean that you have to be like, oh, I love my fat, and therefore I'm just going to just accept it. And you can still want to change. Yeah. But it comes from this place of actually wanting to take care of your body, not doing it so that you love your body. And there's just a whole different experience in how you go about things, because even from a body perspective, a body science perspective, when you don't feel good about yourself, when you're judging yourself, you're hating on yourself, you're criticizing yourself, that's a stressor on the body. and your body knows it. She doesn't feel safe. And so from a actual weight loss perspective, that can also take away from your body's desire, your body's ability to lose weight, because you're always under this sort of stressed state. So that's just another reason why it's important to come at it this way.
That's really interesting. I really appreciate that perspective that you have. And it really brings up this question that, because of course it's easier said than done. We can talk about, we're going to try to accept our bodies, and we're going to try to ignore the messaging that we see in the media that's everywhere that says we're not enough. And we're going to really try to lean in even as things are changing. Talk to us a little bit about how you might approach that with a client, because I know it's easier said than done. Mm-hmm. And it seems to me that a lot of this is about our mindset. So almost like, how could we reinvent how we think about our bodies in midlife to really appreciate them somewhat? How do you work with someone in terms of helping them shift that mindset?
Love it. That's a really great question. And I love what you said there, Wendy, about reinventing your mindset. Because I do work mostly with women in their 50s, 60s, 70s. I have women in their 80s. I don't think I've worked with anyone in their 90s yet, who have completely reinvented their perspective, their mindset. And the only thing that will ever stop you from doing it is the belief that you can't. And if you are firmly believe, if you say things all the time, like it's in my DNA, it's in my bones, it's in my blood, it's not. It's harder as time goes on for sure to shift your mindset, but it's absolutely possible because I see it every single day. And so I love that question. Now, first of all, I think we have to meet ourselves where we're at. And body love and body appreciation isn't about loving every single morsel of your body every single day. Like you said, you have back fat. You might not look at your back fat and be like, oh my gosh, I love my back fat.
Girl, please trust me. I am not thinking that. Oh my God, that back fat is so cute.
It's so cute. Let's wear a little tank top to show it off. But that's okay. And that's not what body love is. Just like we don't love our spouses or our children just because of how they look, right? It's so much more than that. So I do think it's important to start with where we're at and recognize that we're not going to have a day every day be like, yeah, I'm in love with my thighs. I love the little dimples on my butt. No, I'm not going to probably ever think that, and that's okay. But I like starting with body respect. I think body respect is more neutral. It's more doable. If you feel like no matter where you're at, you can start to respect your body. And you might not love everything about it. You might not love it at all, but respect feels a little bit more doable.
It does.
And then it's also a habit. It's not something that just falls from the sky. It's not something that we have or don't have. It's something that we practice every single day. It is a practice. And just like going to the gym and getting fit, you don't go to the gym and do a couple bicep curls and squats one day and be like, okay, I'm good, I'm fit and done. It's something that you do on the regular so that you keep fit. And same thing with body love, body appreciation, body acceptance. It could be something a practice that you do every single day. For example, you might have a practice that every day after your shower, you look at yourself in the mirror and you say something kind to yourself. That's something that you could do. And it could be as simple as, I'm grateful for my body for what my body does for me. Maybe you love your eyes because of what you can see. You love your arms because of the hugs that you can give. You love your mouth because of the pleasure you can feel from kissing or from tasting food. And it's about focusing on the things that you can be grateful for about your body and meeting yourself where you're at. So I do think that we got to start small. We got to make it a practice and a priority. We're not just going to all of a sudden wake up and be like, I love my body.
Right.
And know that not every day is going to be the same. Some days you might feel more positive. Some days you might feel not positive at all, and that's okay. And it's really about also managing your thoughts. And I do like having an intentional practice of practicing the thoughts you want to think. And it could be things like, having a gratitude practice for your body every day to kind of just start to prime your brain for thinking those thoughts. But then also throughout the day, being mindful of the thoughts that you have with yourself. I do a 5-day challenge from time to time. And one of the 5-day challenges that I do, one of the first days, I have this exercise called Your Thoughts Are Making You Fat. And women just reflect on the things that they say to themselves or they think about themselves. And then they reflect on like when they think about those things, what do they do? What do they feel? So for example, they had this thought, like one of my clients once said to me, she's like, I'm just a big fat slob on the couch. I was like, ouch. Like, how do you feel when you say those kind of things? Do you feel excited about moving your body? Do you feel like you want to take care of your body? Probably not. So another big part of this practice, Wendy, is really paying attention to the thoughts that you think and starting to shift them, starting to neutralize them, starting to even just say things like, and that's just a thought, because that's all it is. But what happens is we think these thoughts and then we take them to be true, and then we feel all the feels, and that just reinforces the thought. The last thing I think would be really helpful is to curate an environment that supports more positive thinking. We talked about social media. The great thing about social media is that you can have some control over what you see based on what you follow. And so I do think it can be helpful to follow, more neutral or more positive type accounts. I once saw this account, it was on Facebook long ago, this really, really fit, ripped woman flipping a tire. And she was wearing like her little booty shorts and a bikini top and, like,
of course she was.
Perfect body. And it says progress, not perfection. I was like, oh, come on. Like,
right?
Come on.
Really? Like, hello.
Like, that's not inspiring at all.
No, not at all.
I'm like, I should work harder. And if you can't find an inspiring account, just follow cats. Like, cats are fine. Dogs are fine.
Yeah.
Puppies. There's tons of fun stuff there.
Oh my gosh.
I really do think that we have to be intentional with the things that are coming into our environment at all. We can't control all of it, but we can definitely control some of it.
You just said so many powerful things, Tanja, about what we can do and how we can kind of ease into thinking differently about our bodies. And the first thing that I think that I really loved was when you said body respect. Mm-hmm. So I think often we want to just kind of jump to, here's a solution. I want to do it. I want it to be like all nicely put together. And, like anything, this is a process, especially when it's our mind and we're changing how, as you said, how we think about ourselves, how we think about our body. So I really appreciate this idea of body respect. Mm-hmm. I also like when you mentioned something that you could do, which I think is a challenge, is that idea, like, you get out of the shower and you appreciate something about your body. Because sometimes, to be honest with you, I get out of the shower and I'm not really feeling good. I'm like, I just want to hurry up and get ready. I want to just like put on some lotion and look at my body and just like move forward. Because I'm looking down, I'm like, I don't like this. And so I think that idea that you mentioned of meeting ourselves where we are, that some days, we're like, you know what, girl, I love my butt. And other days are like, well, it's not as much, but that's okay. So
it's okay.
I really like that. And the final thing I really loved was when you were talking about sort of getting out of your head and getting into how you feel. Mm-hmm. Because I think women especially spend a lot of time up in their heads. Mm-hmm. I certainly do.
I certainly do too.
I'm like, and so I have to work at very consciously this idea of feeling, to feel into things. And I feel like that's such a parallel with how I think about reinvention, because what you said basically is that it's coming from the inside out. How you feel is coming from the inside out. And that's, as you know, how I think about reinvention, that we're reinventing from the inside out. So I think there's something to be said in midlife for this idea of slowing down and tuning into our bodies for many different reasons, both the more physical idea of appreciating where we are, and even, when we're talking about reinvention, like dreaming big and going within to tune in. So there's something about that I think is pretty compelling.
I think the more often we can get out of our head and into anything else that's out of our head is probably a good thing, because we do spend, I personally spend a lot of time in my head, and my head can be a very dangerous place to be. So I try to spend not so much time there. Yeah, it's interesting. And, you talked about, I think the getting out of the shower, doing something for yourself in the mirror is helpful, because even if your thought is, you might not start with like, I love anything physically about my body. Like you might not, that might be too far, but you can even start with something like, I have a body, or I have thighs, which is true.
Very true.
But it's not mean. It's not criticizing yourself. You're just saying that. Or you can say something like, I'm in the process of learning how to take care of my body. That could feel true. You don't have to say, I love my stomach. You might not love your stomach. I do have one client though. She has done really well. She's on a very consistent weight loss journey. And she gets out in the morning and she dances in front of the mirror, and she's just like, she loves it. She's like, I jiggle and I just love it, because sometimes, you know what, Wendy, we think sometimes, how would life be different if I like, you know, looked a certain way? We want to like, I want to lose weight so that what? So I could be more confident, so that I could be more joyful, so I could be more present, so that I can be whatever. And once again, you can, I'm not saying you, like, I'm not poo-pooing a weight loss goal. I think a weight loss goal can bring you a lot of those things if it's done right, because you can also work on being more confident no matter what size you're at.
Yes.
You can work on loving your body no matter your size. And the great thing is when you actually work on those things, like appreciating your body, taking care of your body, weight loss becomes the natural consequence for a lot of people anyway. Sometimes we gotta tweak a couple things. Sometimes we gotta like learn a couple things. But when we come at it from a place of like truly taking care of ourselves, we get to the weight we're supposed to be at for the most part. Once again, sometimes we gotta tweak a couple things if we have some, you know, candida overgrowth or some hormone imbalances. But so much can happen just by focusing on how we want to feel and focusing on actually like taking good care of ourselves and not only on the weight loss. You can still want to lose weight. That could still be a goal. But I do encourage you not to have that as the only goal, and that can change things.
I can totally see that. And I can see how it's a work in progress, and that we can take small steps right in the right direction. It's not, we're rushing to get to the destination. Part of it, just like reinvention, is a journey. It's a journey to appreciate and connect with and get to know our bodies in new ways. And perhaps, and it often is a new way when we're, you know, in the midlife, when our body is different. And we might be thinking about our 20 or 30-year-old body, and now we're in our 40 or 50 or 60-year-old body, and it is different, but not bad, just different. So
just exactly.
I appreciate that.
Blessed. I mean, if you're not growing old,
right.
That means you're under the ground. So.
Exactly. You know, when we think about all the people who, you know, have a lot of physical limitations and they can't do the things we take for granted. We run outside and we do whatever, and that could happen to any of us, though. Any of us could become disabled at any time. And I know we often don't think of things like that. So that makes me really appreciate what my body can do. And, you know.
And even for those people who have limitations for whatever reason, I mean, still, I think it comes from the place that our bodies, like sometimes we have autoimmune diseases, or we have, or maybe there's an injury or whatever. Again, I always come back to the idea that our body is always trying the best that she can.
Yes.
And sometimes, like, autoimmune diseases don't just happen because your body like hates you, and it's like there's something going on, and it's a natural response often for survival. And so, coming from that perspective, and no matter what, appreciating what your body can do, even with limitations, I think could be really powerful. Because the other choice is just to focus on what you can't do, and that can be pretty depressing.
Yeah, exactly. And you talked about just a moment ago how sometimes something's going on. So you have these symptoms, meaning that something underlying that. Can you talk for a moment about what you do as a functional health coach and some of the lab work you do? Is that something that might be a good fit as women are in midlife and their bodies are changing and they're basically trying to figure out the puzzle of our bodies?
Oh, I love it. So so thank you, Wendy. I combine both the brain science and the body science to help women really thrive and whatever their goal is. I know that sounds very vague, but for most women, it's getting off the diet roller coaster ride. That's a big part of it. There usually is a weight loss component, but sometimes there's other things going on. So I came to really dive into the functional health side of things because I was working with a lot of women in my programs, and they were getting really great results, and they were changing their mindset. They were becoming happier, more confident, all of these things. And sometimes all this was happening, but then like the scale just wasn't budging, and they just were not losing fat, or they were having, digestive issues, or just their energy wasn't quite there. And I don't like leaving stones unturned. I want to dig into everything. And so I wanted to dive more deeply into the functional health side of things to really uncover what's going on in the body science perspective. Because, I mean, you can have the best protocol in the world, but if your mindset's not there, you're probably is going to have a hard time sticking with it. But sometimes you could have the best mindset and you are consistent, you're doing things, but not getting the results that you want. And I love this quote. Can't remember where I heard it, but if you're doing everything right and you're not getting results, you're not doing everything right for you. Like you're just not doing everything right. And so it's really about discovering what that looks like for you. So what I do is I have a variety of programs that I run. And this has to be obviously a one-on-one coaching program, but I look at hormones, immune function, digestion, detoxification, energy production, stress, oxidative stress, to see what are the healing opportunities for the body. And then the goal is really to coach up the body's resiliency and the body's function, and really to get out of the way so the body can heal, because our bodies are wonderful at healing. But sometimes we just need to remove some of the stressors and give it a little bit more support. And so I do that through individualized protocols. But we do a series of labs first, looking at, again, hormones, immune function, digestion, like gut health, sometimes mineral status in the body as well, because it can tell us a lot. The other thing I think that can be really wonderful about doing labs, and sometimes like I do encourage a lot of my clients to go through some of the mindset stuff first before we, and foundations first before we can get to labs, because again, like if you're not drinking water, if you're not sleeping, if you're always stressed, if you are, not moving your body, if you're eating processed foods. So it's good to focus on the basics.
Yeah.
The labs are an investment, and I don't want to just waste money on telling us something that we already know we should be doing. So it's good to start with the foundations. But what I find quite helpful, and this was true for myself, is when I do the labs and I see it on paper, like what my hormones are doing or how my digestion is functioning, it gives me that stronger, compelling reason to go, like to take care of myself or to work on the habits that I should be working on. Because sometimes we think things like, let's say, for example, mindful eating or chewing your food. It's like, yeah, I'll do it when, or I know, and we don't actually really prioritize it. But then you look at the labs and then you're like, oh, wow, I'm not digesting food properly. Maybe I should start slowing down and chewing my food and eating in a relaxed state. It's as simple as that. But sometimes it could be helpful to see things on paper to really prioritize taking care of ourselves. Or a lot of the women I work with are chronically stressed. And a lot of women are retired, but they're hard on themselves. They're doing too much. They're taking care of everyone else. And then you look at the labs and you see that cortisol levels are usually like in the toilet. So they're just tanked. And it kind of, again, gives that compelling reason to like, maybe it's time now to really prioritize taking care of yourself. So I think that is another added benefit for doing some of the testing for those who are more analytical and like to see it. I just also find it really fascinating just to see what's happening into your body. I think it could be quite neat.
I think it's really interesting. And I think sometimes we don't know enough about our bodies, and that getting that information can be really helpful, to your point, in getting a better understanding. I also like that it's a holistic approach. It's looking at the whole body. I mean, it's the labs, but it's also looking at some of these practices and other things that we need to do. So to your point, it's not just doing that. It's like it seems like a whole body approach too.
It is. It really is, because it has to, for the protocols, I mean, yes, I do targeted supplementation based on what we're seeing, but while that for me takes more of the mind work, like to figure out the best, protocols in terms of supplements, that's about 5% of the healing process. The rest is your diet, your rest, your exercise, your stress management. Like that's the big part. And that's where the mindset comes in too, because a big stressor on our bodies is our mindset. It's that negative self-talk. It's looking at yourself in the mirror. It's pinching your fat. It's not accepting your body. Like we don't even think about that as being a stressor, but it's a huge stressor on our body.
So interesting. But yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way. But yes, I can see how that is. And I know there are obviously many different things that contribute to our stress, like lack of sleep in middle age, and how that is so important as we get older to get sufficient sleep, which is something that I'm working on. So
good for you.
I appreciate this conversation. It's definitely a work in progress. I appreciate this conversation so much about us just trying to we're all trying to figure something out. And you have some really great insights about how we can do that. As we are starting to wrap up, Tanja, I want to ask you a little bit about my theme for season 6 of the Reinvention Rebels podcast, which is Own Your Awesome. I believe we are so much stronger and smarter and more accomplished than we often think about ourselves. And I know we've talked a lot about that self-talk and what that does to us and how it can do a number on us for many different reasons in many different ways. When you hear own your awesome, what does that mean to you as it relates to reinventing ourselves?
When I think of that, I'm like, man, I have work to do. That's my first thought. So it's a consistent process, all of this. I think a lot of it comes down to, once again, how we speak about ourselves and our belief systems about ourselves. And this is something that we can continuously reinvent and we can continuously curate and step into, because so often we have been living lies that we're not enough, we're not good enough, we're not strong enough, we're not confident enough. We're not enough is such a pervasive story. And yet we've never defined what enough is. We just keep telling ourselves that we're not enough. But that's a choice. Says who? It says, the bully in grade 3 who said that you weren't enough, or said maybe your parents told you that one day. And obviously, when we're young, we're pretty vulnerable to these stories. So personally, though, one thing I am working on this year, and this is not the first year I'm working on this, but is I write down in my journal almost every day that I no longer tolerate overwhelm. I no longer tolerate playing small. I no longer tolerate this chaotic kind of, busyness of my mind always going. And my husband actually told me, he's like, you guys just step up and just own it. Be the boss, be the, have that swagger a little bit. And so one of my mantras for this year is energy and boss energy. So that's what I'm calling it for myself, which just means stepping up. And I mean, sometimes, Wendy, I still can feel sometimes so stressed and overwhelmed, because there's just, and it's pressure that we put on ourselves. Everything's fine. The sun's going to rise tomorrow. I have a roof over my head. And yet we put sometimes these pressures on ourselves.
Yeah, we do.
And so and talking about this is why that other message is so important, why I'm reading books that are helping you sort of keep things in perspective. I love Tony Robbins. I love, I'm reading another book by Valerie Burton right now, which I love. Just, we need to have that message so often of just letting all that go. We can be high achievers, but we don't want to be overachievers. We don't want to burn ourselves out. We don't want to keep moving the goalposts on ourselves and always never being enough, because we get to a certain level and then we decide that, now we need to go more. Same thing with weight loss. You get to a certain size that you thought was your goal, then all of a sudden that's not perfect enough. Let's say we can be more perfect. And it's never ending. What's the point of all of this? Because we want to be happy. We want to feel good. And that's something we can actually step into right now. So owning your awesome, I love it. I think that's a beautiful theme for season 6. And it is something that I am working on. Wendy, the book actually is called Life. I think it's called Life Coaching for Successful Women. It's very good.
Oh,
highly recommend
interesting. Oh, I'll have to check that out. But I appreciate this approach that you have to thinking about how you take on this identity, how you can step into this, that we're all working on owning our awesome. Because, it's like everything. It's just like with our weight or our bodies. Some days we're like, oh my gosh, I love my body. I love just the way it is, or I'm appreciating it. And other days we're like, not so much. And I think it's the same thing, right? With this idea of this confidence.
Oh, totally.
Right. And being able to just kind of get out there. So I like your idea of this swagger about being this boss woman who is just taking that on. And that's a great way, I think, to practice owning our awesome.
Absolutely. And it is a practice. It is an intention. It is something that I think about, even on my planning sheet, the very top says boss energy. And then I write down, I got to keep thinking about it. Otherwise, your default is back to these old patterns of, again, playing it small, negativity, doubts, fears, this whole kind of life so hard, that is not serving me. It really isn't. It feels good because I get to be the victim maybe, and I get to complain, but that's about it. And that's not really what I want.
I hear that completely. So we're both a work in progress, like everyone who's listening, and we're all, taking baby steps, I feel forward. And this conversation has been so helpful in thinking about how we can appreciate ourselves more and things that we can do. You shared some really great suggestions for very specific things that we can do to kind of ease into a stronger mindset about our body. So thank you for that. I have to ask you, because I know people are going to be saying, oh my gosh, Tanja is fascinating. She's got these great ideas. She's very insightful. Where can people find you, Tanja, who want to learn more about what you do and your podcast?
Thank you. If you are a podcast listener, which you are, the best place is, well, my website, which is TanjaShaw.com. That links to everything. My name is spelled with a J, so TanjaShaw. And then my podcast is called The Fit and Vibrant You, and it's on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher Radio. I think it's on Google Play. It's on pretty much everywhere, I think. Usually when you put it into your podcast hosting place, it kind of just spews it up everywhere.
I love it. So many places. And what about on socials? Where can people find you?
Oh, yeah. I think on Facebook, I think I'm Tanja Shaw, just TanjaShaw. And on Instagram, I am Tanja_Shaw because Tanja Shaw was taken. So
love it. Thank you so much for gracing me with your presence today. This has been awesome. And I really appreciate you sharing all these insights, Tanja.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Wendy. It's been great. And yeah, I hope your listeners got something out of it. And just, if nothing else, not that this is nothing else, but just the determination to keep going. I think that's a huge part. Is like, just keep moving forward and keep trying and keep, it's a journey. It's not a destination. I know we say that all the time, but there is no arriving, and just to keep taking it one step forward, one day at a time.
I love it. And yes, I think they heard it loud and clear, because I certainly did. If they're really
Awesome.
listening, they totally got this idea, right? We're practicing. We're getting better every day, making these baby steps in the right direction. So thank you again. Is it just me, or was that full of inspiration and all kinds of nuggets of wisdom about how we can have a different relationship with our midlife bodies, how we can feel more empowered in our bodies, how we can start to talk to them differently and really shift our mindset about these bodies that we have, that we need to figure out how to embrace. And I really loved Tanja's story about how she's reinventing her relationship with her body, what's happened and what can be different. I know it's something that I struggle with. You may too. So I'm taking this as something I can do, some proactive steps I can take to not only think differently about my body, but to really lean into loving my body as it is, making it the best possible midlife body and beyond it can be, and appreciating all that I have, the things that I can do with this body. So such really good food for thought. If you love this episode as much as I did, do me a favor, pop over to Apple Podcasts and leave me a 5-star rating and a quick review, because that is a way that makes it easier for people to find the Reinvention Rebels podcast. And we already know there is so much here. There's so much richness. There's so many ways we can lean into and take in this information and apply to our own lives. How can we reinvent in ways that light us up and make us shine? Even, of course, when we are a little scared, which brings me to mentioning the free gift I have for you. My Do It Scared, Do It Anyway guide, because it is scary to reconsider our bodies. It is scary sometimes to get out of our comfort zone and take that step toward our dreams. It doesn't always come easily, but we can get started in simple ways. And this guide is here to help you do that. So I'm linking to it in the show notes. Please download it and let's get started on this journey together. There's nothing we can't do in midlife and beyond. And Tanja reminds me of that. All my other guests remind me of that. You remind me that we can do this. So happy 100th episode, y'all. Thank you so much for listening today. I can't wait to see you back here in just a couple of weeks when we're going to be talking about these 100 episodes, taking a look back. Until next time, keep shining your light, Rebels. The world needs you and all that you have to offer. tired of waiting for someday? Feel like you're too old or it's too late to reinvent yourself? Unsure of how you'd even get started on the path to midlife reinvention? I'm here to help as your guide on the side and host of the top 2% globally rated Reinvention Rebels podcast. I've been around the reinvention block a lot. Here's a simple way you can get started. Sign up for my free audio, 5 questions to spark your curiosity and inspire your Reinvention Rebel journey. It all starts with getting curious about what's possible. And I've got 5 questions to help tease out some very cool ideas. Let's get started. Details are in the show notes.